Yo, 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 what's up, man? Back at it once again, the Coastline Fun Day, cooking it for you and for yours. And I gotta give a shout out to my ancestors for giving me the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding on this glorious, wonderful day, you know. And also I give a shout out to y'all, the listener, the watcher, persons coming in got attracted by the clickbait, whatever, much love to you too, you know what I'm saying? We drop African history on this channel. That's what we do, worldwide. Some things you might agree with, some things you might disagree with. Hey, but it's all fun. It's all fun and love and woe to me. Anywho, this one right here comes from the archives, the National Archives. All right, and this African American history, African American heritage part of the National Archives. Because people out there's no slave ships and all that stuff. Like, okay, whatever. Here's a slave ship manifest. Slave ship manifest filed in New Orleans from 1807 to 1860. Slave manifest, Coastwise vessels filed in New Orleans. These are the Coastwise vessels. The Sooner Thomas Hunter. The Sooner Thomas Hunter was departed from Norfolk, Virginia, October 17, 1835, and arrived in New Orleans, Louisiana, November 11, 1835, with 5 slaves. They got the name. Here go the Sooner Wildcat. Same thing. This was in South Carolina to New Orleans. They had 6 slaves on that one. I know people are like, well, that don't mean nothing. Well, we don't get down to it. On the 30 rolls of the National Archives, microfiche publication, slave manifest Coastwise vessels filled in New Orleans are produced manifests with collectors of customs in New Orleans, Louisiana, of slaves transported coastwise or to from New Orleans during the period of 1807 to 1860. They are part of the U.S. Customs Service Record Group, RG-36, and are records perfectly identified in the series Slave Manifest 1819 to 52 and 1860 to 61. In Forrester R. Holder, Preliminary Inventory Records of Bureaus of Customs, Washington, D.C., National Archives and Record Service, 1968. The original records are housed in the National Archives at Fort Worth. Background. The U.S. Constitution did not mention slavery or the slave trade directly, but through oblique references. One of those provisions was Article 1, Section 9, which stated that the migration or the importation of such persons as any of the states now shall exist think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or dual may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 each person. This provision was born from the sectional struggle in the Constitutional Convention between the Northern and Southern delegates over 3 separate issues that had no logical connection. South Carolina delegate General George Consworthy Pickering insisted that his state and Georgia cannot do without slaves. And John Rutledge of South Carolina threatened that the 3 states of the lower South would secede unless permitted to continue this traffic. The southern states also insisted that the exports of these taxes be outlawed and that the Navigation Act restricting shipping to American flag vessels can only be enacted by 2/3 of the majority of Congress. The delegates reached a compromise that forbade federal interference with the slave trade for 20 years and forbade federal taxes on imports, but allowed a Navigation Act to be passed by a simple majority like other laws. See Samuel Eliot Morison, The Oxford History of the American People, Volume 1, Prehistory to 1789, page 400, New York, The New American Library, Inc., 1972. So that's a site for you. That's a reference to go look that up. In 1807, Congress outlawed the African slave trade effective January 1st, 1808. And 1820 declared that piracy might be punishable by death. Remaining impaired, however, were the rights to buy and sell slaves and to transport them from one slave state to another. Cotton grew in economic importance after the inventory of the cotton and the invention of the cotton gin in 1793. The South nearly doubled its annual production from 1820 to 1830, and doubled again by 1840, and it tripled it again by 1860. By the outbreak of the Civil War, Over half of the value of American goods shipped abroad was in cotton. The broad belt of southern land, ranging from width of 500 miles in the Carolina and Georgia to 600 to 700 miles in the Mississippi Valley, was devoted primarily to the cotton culture. The lower South wealth came chiefly from cotton produced by slaves. Though smaller number of slaves were also profitably in the Carolina and Georgia rice fields along the coast and the production of Louisiana sugarcane. See John D. Hicks, Federal Union, A History of the United States to 1965, page 493. Boston Hungry Milk, 1937. As cotton growing expanded to Alabama to Texas, the lower South need for slaves increased also. At the same time, planters of the upper South had an oversupply of slave labor. Tobacco raisers in such states as Maryland, Virginia, Kentucky was suffering the continual exhaustion of soil and decline in export trade. As a consequence, surplus slaves was transported from one region to another by slave traders. In 1836, the peak of the year's traffic, over 100,000 to 220,000 slaves from Virginia alone was sold in the lower South. In the 1840s and the 1850s, the domestic slave trade slowed somewhat due to the revival of agriculture in the upper South. That was partly due to the discovery of better methods of curing tobacco and the introduction of new and superior varieties. See John D. Hicks, Federal Union, A History of the United States, 1865, page 497, Boston and Myth, 1937. Records description. The Act of March 2nd, 1807, which outlawed the slave trade, imposed regulation on coastal transportation of slaves. Effective January 1st, 1808, vessels under 440 tons in the Coastwise slave trade was prohibited from transporting slaves. The captain or the master of the vessel under 40 tons in the Coastwise trade was required to provide a manifesto of slave cargo to the collector of customs at the port of departure and upon the port of arrival, or to the surveyor if there was no collector of customs at the port. Specifically, the Act provides as follows. Section 9. The captain, master, or commander of the ship or any vessel or the vessel of the burden of 40 tons or more sailing coastwise from any port of the United States to port or place within the jurisdiction of the same, having aboard any Negro, mulatto, or person of color for the purpose of transporting them to be sold and disposed as slaves, or hereafter to held service or labor, and shall revisit the departure of such ships or vessels, make out and subscribe duplicate manifestos at every such Negro, mulatto, or person of color, or board ships or vessels, therein specifying the name and the sex of each person, and an age and stature, whether Negro, mulatto, or person of color, with the name and place of residence of every ownership of shipper of the same, and shall deliver such manifest to the collector of the port, if there be one. Otherwise, to the surveyor before whom the captain, master, or commander, together with the owner of the shipper, shall solemnly swear and affirm to the best of their knowledge and believe that the persons therein specifically were not imported or brought to the United States in after January 1st, 1808, and that under the law of the state, they are to be held in service of labor, where it is said the survey collector shall certify the names on the manifest. One which he shall return, said the commander, master, and commander, and authorize him to proceed to his port of destination. Section 10. The captain or master or commander shall previously unlaw and put on the shore any person aforesaid, delivered to the collector if there be one, or if not to the survey, reside in the port of her arrival. The manifest certified by the collector and the surveyor from the port whence she sailed, and herein therefore in the right of the truth of which before such an officer shall swear and affirm, and the surveyor or the collector shall upon their grant and permit of such unlawing of such Negro, mulatto, or person of color be put ashore. The records includes microphone publication of inward manifest required by Section 10 of this Act to be filed upon New Orleans, as well as outward manifest required by Section 10 of that to be filed before departure from New Orleans. Not all manifests are extensive. Not all were and manifests have survived from the years 1808 to 1818 from 1858. No outward manifest survived from the years 1813, 1817, 1837, and 1859. Some manifests may be lost through years in which the manifests are exerent and resistant. The manifests are pre-filled fill-in-the-blanks of various form and size. They include the name of the vessel, the departure, the ports of departure, the arrival, date of certification by the collector of the customs or surveyor, the captain or master's name, the description of each slave on the vessel, including name, age, sex, height, name of owner or shipper, and color. In addition to the official color designation of the Negro, mulatto, or person of color. Many manifests indicate the slaves to be skin color to be black, brown, yellow, tawny, dark, and copper. So they was all different shades like we are today. It is assumed that the date of certification of the collector regarding the arrival, the accuracy of the manifest was the same as the date of arrival or departure. Manifests are arranged chronologically, but some are disarrangement. And recent searchers are advised to search an entire year of a vessel. Known arrival and departure of a particular date is not found in chronological sequence. For in 1821 and 1827, inward manifest, there's a segment of Miss Canada's manifest which follow each year main sequence of inward manifest. The port of departure attending the ports of arrival range as far as north as Baltimore, Maryland on the Atlantic coast, and as far west as Texas on the Gulf of Mexico. If you want more information about the slave trade in the United States, see Walter Johnson, Soul by Soul, Life in the Alabama Slave Market, Cambridge, Massachusetts, London, England, Harvard Press, 1919, and Robert Clayton, Cash for Blood, Baltimore to New Orleans, Domestic Slave Trade. Here's the roll list they got right here. So they make them sign waivers to say that they, these slaves are not, that these are slaves that we got from around here. These are not imported slaves from Africa. Think about it. Anywho, that's a slave manifesto in the intercoastal slave trade that's happening in the United States, where they were shipping slaves all over the place. So much love to this, you know what I'm saying? So y'all can't say that it just didn't happen or nothing like that. And they was also going overseas. They had to sign a waiver to say that these slaves were from Africa. In the peak year of 1836, the peak year of traffic, over 120,000 slaves from Virginia alone was sold in the lower South. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Anyway, much love to you on yours. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Peace.